Mama giving all praise unto Yabashima Shabashima Hakodasha, double honors unto the apostles of great millstone, and all you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And above everybody are coming out here to give you a quick video, and this is gonna be the contradictions between economic growth and what you know as interest, right? Central bank interest rates. So what we've seen here within the UK, today, you've seen the interest rates basically go up from 2.25 to 3%, which is the so-called biggest rise since when was they saying since 1938 or something like that. It's biggest rise in 30 years, Salakia, right? And what I really want to go into is the contradicting mathematics that basically point to one irrefutable fact, which is that they're crashing this economy to get it ready for the MLTB, market abuse system, right? The CHIP. And this is what we have to understand. So we're gonna go into a little bit of this article, and then we're gonna go into some of the points, or really the one point that I want to make after we read some of these things. So the Bank of England has hiked interest rates to 3%, right? Obviously, this is gonna mean that the cost of borrowing is gonna go up. Most of the time, this goes to show you what the scripture says. This guy was gonna deal with the falsehood, the abatya. Not the falsehood, Salakia, but these false weights, the debt, which is the abatya, spoken about within the book of Hebrews, the 2nd chapter, and how through the debt system they was going to be able to conquer the world. So you can conquer the world via the sword, but this man is conquering the world via the debt system as well as the sword. All right, in conjunction with the sword, he is taking down peoples and nations with the debt as well. And what I wanted to say was, okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. So this is the biggest single rise, which is 0.75% in 30 years. And the reasons for this is what you gotta be really, really keying into. You gotta understand the rhetoric that these guys are going into, and then see how the governments what their rhetoric is. You can see there's going to be a contradiction there, and ultimately it's going to lead to what? It's going to lead to owning nothing and having nothing and supposedly being happy with that. And that's the point I want to drive home with this video. You got to understand that the central bank policies in conjunction with the government policies, which are at odds with each other, is going to leave you with nothing. This is the point I'm trying to drive home. I'm going to make it more clear in a second, right? So what we got here? Millions of homeowners will find their mortgages goes up. So I think it's about a couple of percentage points above the Bank of England point is how the bank makes their money. So let's say Barclays. I'm sure Barclays, Barclays is worldwide, right? So Barclays borrows, I don't know, maybe 40 billion for their business operations. They got their line of credit from the Bank of England, right? And they play that back, or I'm not super deep into all of this stuff, but obviously they're gonna have a means of borrowing and then accessing funds, and then they pay that back based off of the profits that they get from the consumer. As far as I understand it, I'm pretty sure it's something very close to that, but as far as I understand it, that's how it works. The consumer gets a certain amount of the consumer borrows a certain amount of money. Also, fractional reserve banking is in there, but the consumer borrows a certain amount of money, and that percentage is usually higher than what the bank themselves borrow money at, because the bank indeed is a business in its own right. So it's unprofitable to borrow money, or to lend money rather, more to people when you've borrowed it at the same rate or lower. So the borrowing rate is always higher than the high street bank borrowing rate. So the mortgages are going to be going up from 2%, 3% to more like 5-6%, which is hell for most people. That's going to be hell for a lot of people. their mortgages are going to go up. I think at the minute what they're saying is it's gone up by about 800 to about £1,000 depending where you live, and obviously this is going to affect the poor more than it does the rich. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you was managing, you're going to go quickly into a situation where you're not managing, right? This is what it means by you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy with it, because over time lower classes are going to be eroded. At the minute it's the lower classes, right? I think this one, maybe some of the lower middle class are going to feel it, but come on, man. If you've been paying £400 on a month, and I've seen this with my own eyes. These people that I've seen, they haven't got that stretched budget, man. Okay, they don't have a stretched budget. They've got a plethora of options. Now there are people in the lower middle class that overstretch their budget so they could appear like they're in the middle class. But the people that are comfortably within the middle class, they ain't really feeling this because they got the budget to absorb the increases in costs. But the lower people, the lower wages people, the basic individuals that are living, especially in big cities, man, that demand a lot for a mortgage, heating, etc., 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 they're going to be feeling the pinch, man. And some of them are going to have to start selling up their houses, and that could bring about the housing crash. But we're here to discuss one simple point, okay? One simple point. Let's talk inflation. So the government policies that were pushed as a result of the C-19, they had an impact on the world to increase inflation. When you were sitting at home doing nothing and they paid you to do that, that had a dire impact on inflation. This is why we are where we are at the minute. What the central banks aim to do is to curb inflation by increasing the cost of borrowing, therefore stagnating the market and therefore reducing inflation. Because inflation is all to do with what? With buying, right? And the cost of things going up because people are buying, right? It's activity within the market, along with monetary policy that also has market activity increase. So this is why they have what's known as raising the rates to slow down inflation. If I can get that point here, they're gonna say it. So you see, the bank also thinks, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. This is what they're saying. I'm just reading it verbatim. They think that the inflation is not going to go up that much past 5%, right? So this is the reason why they've increased their rates to 3%. Okay, now this is the point I want to key in, right? When you're watching the news tonight, if you're here within England, and when you're watching articles about this across the pond within America, and the same thing is going to be happening out there within Babylon. And then the next thing that they say in the next preceding days is President Biden or Prime Minister Sunak, what are you going to do to increase market activity so people have more money? You should be able to see a red flag. Okay? This is the point I'm trying to drive home, right? And hopefully my understanding is on point. If it's not, then Salakia, comment in the comment board. But I think there'll be enough decent points, to still keep the video up. But as far as I understand it, if the Bank of England is working to reduce market activity and slow down the market so that inflation goes down, okay, then why is the policies that they're going to bring forth inflationary? Can you see how that's a problem? Okay, when you got government spending, right, which is inflationary because it relies on borrowing in order to spend, right? When you got inflationary policy, right, to mitigate inflation, you get more inflation, right? For the most part, I mean, I can't think of a policy off the top of my head that's gonna really reduce inflation and it's inflation. I can't think of a policy like that. I can't think of a policy that they're gonna bring forth that wasn't gonna be inflationary. So when they say, look, Sunak, right, the price of my mortgage is going up. Can I have some money towards my mortgage? Which inevitably they're gonna bring what's known as the basic universal basic income. But on the road to the universal basic income, all this money that they're sending you to spend on your gas bill, that's inflationary policies. And invariably, it's going to be a housing crisis, and it's going to be inflationary policies. So the Bank of England has to carry on raising interest up to slow down the market, and the cycle repeats, because this is how it's been since the days of the so-called 0.1% Bank of England rates. That's how it's been. Government releases a policy, okay, they increase their rates, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, you're in the middle getting squeezed. Okay, meanwhile, you are in the middle getting squeezed. Okay, and that's the point. Hopefully, my understanding of the market is on point. If it's not, fuck it. It is what it is, right? But as far as I understand the market and how the government governs the people, the market, not the market, but rather more the Bank of England raises rates up when there's too much inflation within the market. When there's too much inflation within the market and the base rate goes up, and it becomes too expensive to buy stuff, because the cost of borrowing has gone up, right? Because mortgages are gonna go up. Then you're gonna have the government step in, and they're gonna borrow money in order for you to have money, in order for you to pay the first initial bill. But hold on a minute. When the government creates policies to mitigate inflation, right, based off of the Bank of England increasing rates, you got more inflation, and the cycle continues. Okay, and the cycle continues, right? So that's my understanding of it, and from that understanding, it's easy to see how they're going to strip you of everything that you own. It's easy to see how the MLTB system is going to be brought about where you don't have nothing. It's easy for me to see that. Okay, so hopefully that was a verification. But I must say, all praise unto Yahweh, outside Bashim, Akudashta, but honors unto the apostles, a great millstone, and honestly, brothers, that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.